Hello again, everyone, and thanks so much for joining us for this Monday's edition of Alaska Weather. I'm Dave Percy, a meteorologist with the National Weather Service, and I'll be hosting today's show. Up first here, again, temperatures into the 90s by mid-afternoon, about the same areas that we saw yesterday, except Poor Man and Bethel, Poor Man farther to the north, up in the kind of the west-northwest interior there, or the west-central interior. And Bethel, 89 degrees, almost pushing 90, probably will make it today. And Big Lake in the southern Susitna Valley, across Connect Arm from Anchorage, 90 degrees, 90 degrees along with areas of the Kenai Peninsula. One was Kenai NWR at 90 degrees, then Ski Lac Lake up to 91, and then Stony there on the east side of the Alaska Range at about 1,200 feet, 94 degrees is a warm spot. On the hazardous weather graphic, the smoke advisory continues for the western Kenai Peninsula for tonight and into tomorrow, and also up here over the central interior, greater Fairbanks area over to the greater Tanana area, and then on down in toward the near the Denali Park area there. That's for dense fog with visibilities under half a mile at times through for tonight and into tomorrow. On the fire danger chart here, you can see quite an area of extreme fire danger from right around Fairbanks, central Tanana Valley there, back to the southwest, down the Kuskokwim and mostly the Kuskokwim River Valley, not so much the Yukon, but it does get into the lower Yukon Valley there, and high fire danger out across the Kuskokwim Yukon Delta. And also here on the north side of the Seward Peninsula, high fire danger, extreme fire danger, western Kenai Peninsula, north of Kamishak Bay, right on up across Turnagain Arm, Anchorage, Chugach Mountains, on up into the Mananuska-Susitna Valley, and right on through the central Copper River Basin there along the valley, and also a little bit less now up over the upper Yukon Valley. Still some areas of extreme fire danger up there of the Yukon and the Koyukuk, and just about into the Kobuk Valley, and some high fire danger there, northern Panhandle and Canal Glacier Bay on up toward Skagway. And for satellite imagery, looking at today, you can see a lot of clouds here still along the North Gulf Coast, Gulf of Alaska, right in toward the Panhandle. Also got northerly flow aloft. Looks like a weak disturbance dropping southward here, and that's triggering some thunderstorms here just east of the Panhandle, and also creating more cloudiness down there as well, with some sun back to the north there, and then just sunny skies here with areas of smoke kind of spread from actually Norton Sound. This area is pulling southwestward around the high center and then spreading back across the Yukon Delta into Norton Sound, right up into the central interior, then on to the east, and of course some down here over the Kenai Peninsula. Otherwise, you got clear skies again from Bristol Bay right up along the southwest coast and well off it. There was some sun today at St. Paul. Clouds are moving in now with this moisture sliding northwestward, but mostly clear skies right on up into the Chukchi Sea and the western Arctic coast, north slope clear, catching some clouds, lower clouds and fog on the Arctic coast, fog lifting out this afternoon in most areas. And on the chart for today, you can see the smoke shows up quite nicely here where it was at early afternoon from Norton Sound across the Kuskokwim Valley, then back up along and west of the, or northwest of the Alaska Range, right up actually into the upper Yukon Valley, and then back down into the Copper River Basin. And low clouds and fog, Gulf of Alaska and along the southeast coast. Thunderstorms actually hasn't happened yet there north of Skagway, but the forecast too. And there are really quite a few strikes here just east of the central and southern Panhandle. And light winds here in the Gulf of Alaska. Sunny skies again, temperatures lower 70s across Kodiak Island. Fog bank just off to your east, and it wants to move in. And otherwise, this weak system out here brought about less than 1/10 of an inch of rain today to Adak, with light rain, fog, and drizzle extending from actually Unmak Island all the way out to Shimei and Attu, but winds are very light across all of the state. You can see only 3 isobars here across the entire state today, about same thing, 3, so wind not a factor with that system. And for tonight, again, thunderstorms this evening, possibly into the Panhandle, even maybe some scattered showers as that weak disturbance drops southward. Otherwise, low clouds and fog on the coast again, trying to push inland, back into Yakutat, Cordova, and that should push up into Prince William Sound. The low clouds and fog back into Seward again. Could see the visibilities drop down to a quarter mile once again into, looks like not Kamishak Bay, could get into Kamishak Bay. We'll pull back up on the east side of Kodiak Island. Areas of smoke through the interior, mainly the central southern interior. Clear up to the north. Possible low clouds, fog, both sides of the Arctic coast. This system, very weak, just continues to spin out there just near the Adak-Atka area. And that doesn't really change, but it kind of pulls back to the northwest a little bit there. This week, trough might spread some moisture up into the Pribilofs, but nothing heavy. Drizzle, light rain, fog, lower flying conditions. Definitely a lot of IFR out here associated with that thing from the western Alaska Peninsula, especially socked in for the Aleutians. Thermal low now up over the central interior for Tuesday. Temperatures starting to cool down. That's going to start drawing some marine air in with this low center to the north of southern Alaska. Won't be a drastic cool down, but maybe by Wednesday, Kenai Peninsula, Cook Inlet might be down to lower to mid-70s. And Copper River Basin in the 80s again. Smoke through the interior, heaviest around the central interior and the Kenai Peninsula. Risk of thunderstorms again over toward the eastern border of the Panhandle. Outlook for Wednesday, sunny skies here, back to the north, all the way out to near the Arctic coast. Could be some low clouds of fog just skiffing the area there. And that begins to expand actually into the Chukchi Sea now, bring the low clouds, fog back through the Bering Strait. St. Lawrence Island, IFR continues with areas of real light precipitation, drizzle, showers, nothing significant. Low center pulling back to the west there, maybe 20-mile-per-hour wind gusts for the western Aleutians, and that's about it. Thunderstorms a little more extensive now along the Alaska Range, especially back down into the southwest interior, just north of Bristol Bay, around Iliamna, back along the Alaska Range, even the Eagle area, and still a threat there over the southern southeast coast. Low temperatures tonight in the 50s for the Panhandle, and look at these 60s over the southwest interior. Bethel, St. Mary, 62 for your low, 61 there at Nome. And I'm not sure who that is with a 69, and lower 60s for the Tanana Valley. Highs tomorrow, 85 to 90 here. Upper 80s to near 90 central interior. Back into probably the mid-80s around Bethel, and back into the maybe mid-70s, 75 to 80 Cook Inlet, mid-80s to Sitna Valley, mid-80s Copper River Basin, 60s, lower 70s for the Panhandle. Lows the following morning, the 50s for the southeast coast, still 60s quite prevalent here through the central interior, back to the southwest, as well as the Anchorage area, and that'll be followed by highs in the lower to mid-70s now for the south central area. Lower to mid-80s Copper River Basin, and in the 80s over the interior with 40s up along the Arctic coast, the southeast coast, 60s to lower 70s, warmest in the north, and the Aleutians, highs near 50.
And now, aviation weather around Alaska.
And into flying weather, IFR here, central southern Bering Sea across the Aleutians, up to the Alaska Peninsula. Marginal VFR, St. Matthew Island. VFR, Nunivak Island again. Southwest coast, Bristol Bay, St. Lawrence Island, Chukchi Sea. IFR, central eastern Arctic coast. VFR, north slope in the Brooks Range. Then areas of marginal VFR due to the smoke here. Central eastern interior, right on down into the southwest, even northern Bristol Bay. Of course, Kenai Peninsula. That's going to be mixing in with the marine layer as well. So you're going to have low clouds, fog, and smoke starting to become a little more prevalent in this area. Not so much by tomorrow morning, but the following hours. And then it looks like VFR Southern Panhandle, IFR Southern Panhandle, marginal to the north. And with the exception of Lincoln Island Glacier Bay, the remainder of the southeast coast tomorrow afternoon will be marginal VFR with IFR along the coast of Prince of Wales Island. And the IFR mostly off the coast here, just catching Montague Island. But south of the Kenai Peninsula, east side of Kodiak, Fognak Islands, marginal VFR, Kenai Peninsula, Cook Inlet, Prince William Sound, and due to the smoke here in the interior, north of there though, good VFR right on out to the Arctic coast will be occasionally marginal. And IFR moving northward here across St. Matthew Island, looks like St. Lawrence Island, another day of VFR conditions there, and then some lower conditions from straight on up. And no change out here in the west, just mostly IFR, areas of. Marginal VFR St. Lawrence Island, IFR the Strait, IFR along the Arctic coast, VFR, North Slope, Brooks Range, Upper Yukon, Koyukuk, Kobuk, Selawik valleys out to Norton Sound, possibly Kotzebue right on the edge there. Smoke still creating marginal conditions in areas here over the interior, and IFR across Kodiak Island, up along the south coast of the Kenai Peninsula. Of course, it was today at Seward with they had zero visibility and fog earlier, and Prince William Sound, IFR right up, not to Valdez, but definitely to Cordova. Marginal for Yakutat, and VFR for the Panhandle, IFR again along the south coast. And in the afternoon, VFR across all the southeast coast, marginal here, Kenai Peninsula, Cook Inlet, southern Susitna Valley, Prince William Sound, North Gulf Coast, IFR Kodiak, and again, areas of marginal conditions due to smoke in the southern interior, VFR to the north, eastern and central Arctic coast, IFR, no change out in the west. And for Anaktuvuk and Adigan tomorrow, both passes. Another VFR flying day for those areas, in fact, probably most of the Brooks Range. Anaktuvuk, Adigan again, VFR, Lake Clark and Merrill. Risk of a thunderstorm in the afternoon for both passes. Rainy, same thing, VFR, the risk of a thunderstorm. Windy, VFR. Isabel, VFR. And Mentasta, looking good, VFR. Of course, any of the passes prone to whatever smoke drifts into the area. Tanita, VFR. Portage, marginal VFR. It looks like it'll be at this point in time, but these forecasts are subject to change without notice. And for Chilkoot and Whites, turning out marginal, becoming VFR. Freezing levels, 14,000 feet here over the lower Yukon and Kuskokwim River Valley areas on out actually into the deltas. Big area of 12,000 foot freezing levels here. Very warm air mass aloft here continues, and that's again supporting the temperatures 80s to lower 90s, mostly through this area tomorrow. But 10,000 feet over to the border, Panhandle, and about 8,000 feet the cool area over the central western Aleutians. Icing, not a lot here, just a little bit possible here of for the Fox Islands on up to just south of the Pribilofs, and that's about it. Otherwise, moving on to the jet stream. We've got low pressure here along the Aleutians out to the west, and a big ridge here actually from the Gulf of Alaska right on up across the Bering Strait into the Russian Far East. Westerly flow north of the Arctic coast now and taking a dive southeastward there, mostly just near or east of the Kenzie River Delta. And really this jet with that system bringing the rainy weather to the Aleutians. And for 9,000 feet east-southeast, 20 to 30 knots there from Matka Island up to the False Pass area. Southern Bering Sea, 25 to 30 knots to 25 at the Pribilofs, diminishing here as you get in toward the ridge. 5 to 10 knots under the ridge axis from the Gulf of Alaska and the Panhandle right on up into the Chukchi Sea. 10 to 15 westerlies for the Arctic coast. 3,000 feet, same pattern, but much lighter winds, 5 to 10 knots over all of the interior, including the Panhandle, Gulf of Alaska, Kodiak Island, 15 to 20 over the Aleutians, and no significant turbulence expected for the day on Tuesday.
It can be many miles long, from 1 to 100 feet high, traveling at 400 miles per hour. This ocean monster is known as a tsunami, and it can wreak havoc on coastal populations and landscapes. A tsunami is a series of ocean waves caused by any large and sudden disturbance of the sea surface. Tsunamis can be generated by landslides, volcanic eruptions, or even meteorite impacts in the ocean, but they are most often caused by an earthquake where there's a sudden displacement of the ocean floor. When that happens, there's a transfer of energy from the sea floor to the ocean, causing waves on the surface to radiate outward in all directions. In deep waters, these waves may not even be detectable. But when the tsunami enters shallower waters, the wave speed slows and its height increases. The water along the coast may recede noticeably. A large wall of turbulent water, called a bore, may also form. When the tsunami hits, it may come ashore like a fast-rising flood and strike with devastating force. The series of waves may continue for hours. first one may not be the last or the largest. For your safety, know the potential warning signs of an incoming tsunami. A strong earthquake that causes difficulty standing. A rapid rise or fall of the water along the coast. A loud ocean roar. When you're in a coastal area, it's important to keep alert for messages from local officials, such as lifeguards, police, the U.S. Tsunami Warning Centers, and NOAA All Hazards Radio. If you find yourself in a location of a tsunami strike, here's what you need to do to stay safe. Keep calm. Walk or run to higher ground, 100 feet above sea level or 1 mile inland. Do not drive. Keep roads open for emergency vehicles. If you cannot move to higher ground, use the stairs to get to the 3rd floor or higher in a sturdy building. Follow all instructions from local officials and stay out of coastal areas until authorities issue an all clear. Tsunamis can strike any coastline in the world and can affect locations thousands of miles away from where they formed. They may be uncommon, but the devastation they cause makes them a deadly force in nature. For more information on tsunamis, go to the following sites.
Tsunami, a killer wave, speeding across the ocean at 400 miles an hour. It smashes into land, destroying everything in its path. Tsunamis do not have a season, but they can strike any coast at any time. If one forms close to the shore, the shaking of the earth and a loud roar may warn of its approach. But when a tsunami forms across the ocean, it can take hours to reach the shore, enough time to warn people to move to higher land. Over the past 20 years, NOAA has developed DART, a real-time monitoring system that provides data for forecasting tsunamis. The DART systems have been deployed in earthquake-prone areas throughout the ocean, including the Pacific and Indian basins. A DART system combines a surface buoy and a sensor on the ocean floor. This sensor detects changes in water pressure and seismic activity and transmits the data back to the surface. If these changes indicate a tsunami may form, the buoy signals an alert via satellite to the tsunami warning centers in Alaska and Hawaii. Back at the centers, scientists plug the data into pre-existing models. These models predict the height, the arrival time, and the coastal locations that the tsunami will hit. Watches and warnings are issued to the affected communities so preparations can begin. Today, 47 DART stations are positioned all around the world, ready to detect and warn coastal communities about the next potential tsunami. With the DART system and tsunami warning centers in place, we are now better prepared to predict a killer wave before it strikes.
December 26, 2004. What began as an undersea earthquake in the Indian Ocean ended as the most deadly tsunami in recorded history, with nearly 240,000 lives lost. This was a devastating wake-up call to coastal communities and tsunami research. Prior to this event, only 6 of NOAA's Deep Ocean Assessment and Reporting of Tsunami, or DART, buoys were in place. Scientists could only predict tsunami arrival times, not flood potential. And there was not a global tsunami warning system. Today, 10 years later, we can tell a different story. U.S. and international coastlines are far better prepared for such a catastrophe, thanks in large part to research and technology developed at the NOAA Center for Tsunami Research at Pacific Marine Environmental Laboratory. NOAA's DART array is now complete, with 39 buoys operated by the National Weather Service's National Data Buoy Center. Along with 21 international buoys, this array can measure a tsunami wave as small as 1 centimeter in the open ocean and provide these data in real time to forecast when a tsunami may hit the coast and how much flooding there will be. NOAA scientists and engineers are currently testing the 4th-generation DART buoy that will be able to measure local tsunamis as well as distant ones. Flooding forecast models incorporate local topography and historical tsunami data in order to more accurately predict exactly how a tsunami might behave when it reaches shore. NOAA has 75 site-specific models that can provide high-resolution flooding forecasts for effective response and mitigation during a tsunami event. NOAA has gathered data from every tsunami since 2004 to improve its forecast models. Today, it operates the world's only real-time tsunami flooding forecast system using DART data to accurately compute flooding forecasts. The NOAA Tsunami Warning Centers make tsunami data available on the internet and issue advisories, watches, and warnings through the Emergency Alert System and via NOAA weather radios. While it is impossible to prevent a tsunami, we are now much better prepared to detect them and predict their paths and impacts, so those in coastal communities can take the steps necessary to safely protect themselves.
And now, marine weather around Alaska.
Welcome back. Looking at sea ice analysis. Again, not much different from what we've seen over the weekend. Still pretty open here up into the Chukchi Sea, but not quite to Wrangell Island. And still have this open area well north of the eastern Beaufort Sea coast, and no big changes expected for the next 5 days. Southeast coast winds southeast at 10 knots all along the coast tomorrow. Pretty uniform light wind pattern here, seas 4 to 5 feet. Same thing over the central southern inside waters, southeast 10 knots, seas 2 feet. Lynn Canal and the greater Lynn Canal area south at 15. And that doesn't change on Wednesday. Southerlies 15 for northern Lynn Canal, especially in the afternoon. Otherwise, light or variable winds at 10 knots for the central southern inside waters with slight seas, and northwest 10 to 15 on the south coast. North coast westerlies at 10 to 15 knots with 4-foot seas. Cook Inlet, North Foreland, south 15 knots. A little brisker, up to 20 knots now, south of from southern Cook Inlet, south 25-foot seas. Southeast 15 for Kamishak Bay, east 15 for the Barren Islands. Light south-southeast winds for the North Gulf Coast and Prince William Sound, all at 10 knots. Seas in the Sound at 2 feet, 4 to 5 feet there for the North Gulf Coast. And the outlook for Wednesday, west-southwest here, just a breeze at 10 knots for the North Gulf Coast areas with seas 3 feet. That extends actually back across the Barren Islands with those light southwest winds. Same thing for Prince William Sound, southwest at 10. A little bit more of a breeze there in Cook Inlet, 20-knot winds south of the Forelands out of the south, and then northern Cook Inlet southwest with seas at 5 feet. 15-knot southeast winds for Kamishak Bay. And for the Alaska Peninsula here, southwest at 10 tomorrow, pretty light with seas 2 feet in the Bering side, 6 feet in the Pacific side, southwest at 10, Bristol Bay with 2-foot seas. Same thing for Shelikof Strait, southwest 10, southwest of Sitkinak, east side of Kodiak, 15 knots, again from the southwest. Not much change for Wednesday, southwest breeze 10 to 15 there for Kodiak Island marine areas. Alaska Peninsula, south side, southwest 10 knots, Sitkinak to Cape Sarachev, and Cape Sarachev here, the Bering Sea side of the peninsula, northeast at 10, really kind of just light variable winds at 10 knots here for Bristol Bay on down the coastline. Those seas only at 1 foot. And for the western Aleutians, west 20 tomorrow, seas 7 feet, Adak and Atka, south to southwest 15 to 20, and then south to southeast at 15 for the Fox Islands, seas running 3 to 8 feet. Next day, Wednesday, southwest 10 to 15 here with the lightest winds over on Alaska Island and seas running 2 to 7 feet. And AKwx south to southeast, south to southwest at 15 to 20 knots with seas running 5 to 7 feet. And then out here over the western Aleutians, southerlies at 20 knots, seas 7 feet. Moving on to the southwest coast. Get the right direction on the clicker there. And we've got southwest winds 10 to 15 knots, not too bad, with 2-foot seas, southeast 15 for the Pribilofs, east 15 St. Matthew Island, seas just 3 to 4 feet. Northeast winds 10 knots, Norton Sound 15 knots for St. Lawrence Island, and seas 2 to 3 feet. Outlook for Wednesday, speed stays the same, but the direction reverses. Southwest 10 to 15 there, Norton Sound across St. Lawrence Island. Southerly winds at 10, pretty light for the southwest coast, 2 to 3 foot seas. And south 10 for the Pribilof, seas 3 feet, southeast 15 for St. Matthew Island, again with 4-foot seas. And light variable winds here for the central eastern Arctic coast. 1 foot for the sea heights at the most, of course, with that. And then northeast 15 seas 3 feet here from about Point Lake, kicks up to 20 knots from the northeast. Cape Beaufort to Cape Thompson, and then 15-knot winds on down to Wales. Outlook for Wednesday, 20 knots now from the north here, Wales up to Cape Thompson. The northeasterlies up the west side there at about 20 knots, falling back to north at 10 for the central and east coast, and then northwest 15 over to demarcation point. For tonight again, could see some thunderstorms try to get into the east side of the panhandle here, maybe even some scattered showers due to a weak upper disturbance coming southward. Drier to the north, low clouds and fog, Gulf of Alaska, along the southeast coast, back into Yakutat, Cordova, Seward, into Prince William Sound, east side of Kodiak, return to the fog. Fair and smoky over the southern interior, light winds and clearer up to the north. And outlook for tomorrow, sunny and not so hot over southern Alaska, but still into the 80s. And a little cooler southern Alaska, better chance of thunderstorms on Wednesday.
These forecasts are for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating.